All right, today we are going to talk about a true visionary. I mean, a figure whose ideas were so far ahead of their time, it literally took the world 100 years to even begin to understand them.
So let me just start by asking you a question. When you think of the world's very first computer programmer, who do you picture? Just for a second, get that image in your head. What do they look like?
You probably pictured some tech genius from the 1940s, right? Maybe a brilliant engineer in a lab coat surrounded by massive, humming machines. Well, what if I told you the world's first programmer was actually a 19th century aristocrat and the daughter of a world-famous rock star poet?
Yeah, her story isn't one of circuits and labs. It is one of the most incredible stories in the history of technology, precisely because it all starts with poetry.
Her name was Augusta Ada King, the Countess of Lovelace, but you and we know her as Ada Lovelace. And yes, she was the one and only legitimate daughter of the notorious, brilliant, and kind of rebellious romantic poet, Lord Byron. She was born right into the heart of the art and literature world.
But here's what's so cool about Ada. She didn't see her father's world of words and her world of numbers as being in conflict. Not at all. She actually saw a deep connection. She was completely obsessed with math, but she called it poetical science. For her, it was a way of seeing the hidden beauty of the universe, all through the language of logic.
And it was this passion, this unique way of seeing the world, that led her to a meeting that would not only change her life, but, and this is no exaggeration, the future of technology as we know it.
Get this, she was only 17 years old. At an age when most of us are just trying to figure things out, Ada met the man who would become her great intellectual partner, the brilliant, if a bit eccentric, inventor Charles Babbage.
Now, Babbage was working on this incredible machine he called the Analytical Engine. Try to picture a gigantic, steam-powered mechanical brain made of gears and levers. It was supposed to be a calculator, sure, but it was so much more. It was basically the blueprint for a general-purpose computer, dreamed up a full 100 years before we had the electronics to actually build one.
But here's where the story really takes a turn. Ada looked at Babbage's designs, at all those gears and punch cards, and she saw something that nobody else did. Not even Babbage himself. She saw a future that went way, way beyond just doing math. You see, while Babbage and pretty much everyone else just saw a giant calculator, a machine for crunching numbers, Ada saw a creative partner. She realized that if a machine could manipulate numbers, it could manipulate anything that could be represented by symbols, like letters or even musical notes. And she didn't just dream about it. She actually described how to do it. In a set of notes she wrote, she laid out step by step a detailed set of instructions for the engine. It was a process to calculate a really complex mathematical sequence. What she wrote was, for all intents and purposes, the world's first computer program, an algorithm on paper for a machine that hadn't even been built.
I mean, listen to how far ahead she was. This is her writing in the 1840s, and she says the engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music. She wasn't just thinking about spreadsheets. She was imagining creative AI over a century before anyone else.
But, and this is the really tough part of the story, the world just wasn't ready for her. The analytical engine was never finished. In Ada's incredible insights, her vision of this creative digital future were mostly just shrugged off by people at the time as, well, as fantasy. And so for 100 years, there was just silence. The world's first programmer, a true prophet of the digital age, was basically lost to history. So tragically, Ada died of cancer when she was only 36 years old. 36. And her groundbreaking notes, that brilliant vision she had, they were just filed away, and for a long time, forgotten. So let's just put this timeline in perspective. Ada dies in 1852. For almost 100 years, her work just sits there. Then in the 1940s, the first electronic computers are built, and the inventors have no idea she ever existed. It wasn't until the 1970s that historians finally dusted off her notes and realized what they were looking at, a full century of waiting for the world to catch up. But you know, some voices are just too important to be silenced forever. And in the 20th century, Ada's voice finally broke through, and we all began to understand her incredible legacy. Can you just imagine being one of those early computer pioneers, and you stumble upon these notes? Here, in the elegant handwriting of a Victorian woman, is a blueprint for the very future you're trying to build. They must have been absolutely stunned. She'd seen it all, 100 years before them. And in that moment, it all came full circle. The poet's daughter, the one who was dismissed as a dreamer, was finally recognized for who she really was, the prophet of the machine age.
And look, this isn't just a fun history lesson. That massive conceptual leap she made, the idea that computers could be more than just calculators, that is the bedrock of our entire modern world. Every app on your phone, every piece of digital music, every single line of code written today exists because of her vision. Every programmer out there is walking in Ada's footsteps.
So I'll leave you with this thought. 150 years ago, the idea that a machine could create a piece of music was considered an impossible fantasy. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What incredible ideas, what brilliant fantasies are we just dismissing out of hand today?